Alright, so this time we're going to be going over how I start to do a logo. I'm going to introduce it to you, show you what we're going to do, try to visually break it down, separate the different elements, and then we're going to show. I want to show you guys how to set up a layered file from Photoshop, mainly just to be organized. So when you bring it into After Effects, you know what's what and how you're going to deal with it. So let's take a look at what we're going to do. We're not going to do it all in this lesson. We're going to break it up. But I want you guys to look at this, and then we're going to see how we can do this on our own. Now, I saw this logo. I put an inspiration folder in there. And I saw this logo that was done by Eyeball NYC, and they rebranded PBS, and I just saw this logo and how they revealed it, and the way they revealed it, I could just totally break it down right here. We're going to do a simplified version of that. The way the logo comes in. So I'm going to rewind it a little bit, take a look at it again. It's a pretty neat way they did that, and I can do a frame by frame. But this whole clip is actually really good, and those guys are really good. And I gave you another inspiration clip to check out. But it's a simpler version of that PBS logo, and it's done with like they have some little sparkle stuff that starts at first, some white glow spheres, and then the logo is revealing in at the same time. So with all those elements happening at the same time and at different speeds, your brain doesn't know what to do, and it kind of gives up, and hopefully it thinks that it's a cool effect. So that's what we're going to work towards. But in this lesson, I want to show you how I set up my Photoshop file. It looks a little different than this. This is the original logo, and we kind of upgraded it a little bit. And I'll show you a little bit of that here. And I'll show you a different file too. So here's that original file. The logo that I was given is like this. It's nothing too special, but I went in and did my version of this. And when you're in this industry, they expect you to add value, and this is how I add value. I have a before, and I want to show you the after. So what I did was I put in like a reflection, maybe some shadowing, and I put a little hot spot as if the light is hitting this, and then I put a vignette, which is some as if you can almost see the lens on the corners of the image, and I'll show you here. So I kind of color picked within here and tweaked the color a bit and made a vignette. So it's soft and pleasing. This is a nonprofit for educating teachers and how to teach better. I know these people, and she's pretty cool. But you can see I put like this reflection to make it shiny. I put a darker color down here to give it some dimension, and a hot, soft color. And I have it all broken out. Now when I'm bringing stuff into After Effects, I break out all of my stuff more like this. I try not to group it into folders. Photoshop has folders. I try not to do that, because if you bring in a folder, it just makes it another pre-comp inside After Effects, and I'd like to bring it in when it's all the layers are just stacked as is. I noticed my layers were unlinked. But we have the reflection, We have the shadow and the hotspot. And now we're back the way it was originally. So I put a little hotspot in there, and that kind of feels a little bland, so I'll put in the shadow. So dark to light, and then a reflection. Reflections seem to make anything look kind of fancy and sleek. And then the little URL at the bottom and the actual logo. And a slight shadow to pop it off the back. So when I'm in Photoshop, I make sure I name everything. So the reflection is reflection, shadow, hotspot, text, logo, shadow, and then BG is my background. So if you arrange everything all in Photoshop, make sure everything is named, so when you bring it in, it's you know where things are going to go. And if you look at the name convention that I have, the other one that you saw just was logo in tag. That's like me getting my ideas out. It's not ready for After Effects. When I prep it for After Effects and name it all right and have it with no group, it's just out and stacked on each other, I name that file _ After Effects or AFX. So I know that one's ready to go into After Effects. So I'm not going to save that. I'm going to come in here. I'm going to import this guy. See, I have it named. And I'm going to import. And we want all the layers. So remember, footage is flat. Composition is all the layers. And that's what it defaults to, which is good. I'm going to hit OK. And just like that other Illustrator file from before, you get a composition, and then you get all the layers. And again, the true name is at the back of the /, and the layer names are at the beginning. So it's layer name, then the file name. And I can double click this comp, and I can check it out. It brought in the guides that I had from Photoshop. But the benefit of bringing something like this in is because most people are very comfortable in Photoshop. And you can totally set up, if you're comfortable in Photoshop, I know a lot of you guys are, you set up your size and your position, your actual objects, the way they look. You don't have to build all that in After Effects. If you're comfortable in Photoshop or Illustrator, you do that. You do it all in whatever program you want, as long as you name it correctly and bring it in. It's all there. So I'm going to look at the layer names and the layer order compared to here. I'm going to try to do a side by side. So you can compare the layer names and the order. It's all the way it is, which is good. Background, shadow, logo, logo. The URL, hotspot, hotspot, inner shadow, reflection, reflection, vignette, vignette. So that's the beautiful thing about it. And Illustrator works pretty much the same way. I'll get it started. Very similar to the other character that we did. There's only one slight little thing you've got to double check on your Illustrator. I'm going to show you guys that. But while Illustrator is opening, we'll dissect this a little bit and just keep watching it. So try to look at just the sparkles, the little particles, and notice what they do. So just concentrate on the particles, the little ones. And now try to just focus on the little light colored light blooms, the little faded spheres that come in after the particles, because it's the particles first and then the little white blurry circles second. And then try to pay attention to the actual badge, the round logo. How does it come in? Like, you kind of have to look through all the stuff that's going on to see how that badge is happening. And now that Illustrator is open, let's check it out. So I'm opening that file from the previous lesson. This guy. And I'm going to check out my layers. And here are all the layers. Oh, those are a lot of layers. But I did that so you could play with the character. And it was just to give you flexibility. But these layers are in the same order as when they were imported into After Effects. And then we rearranged some orders, but I got it as far as I could in Illustrator. And notice the naming. This is where the naming came from. I did all the naming in Illustrator. And they are all on their own respective layers. I'm going to show you that little hiccup to watch out for. I'm going to make a new document in Illustrator. So if you got a circle and a square, just so we can see the difference. And sometimes people get caught up in this little arrow down here that looks like it's on different layers. And if we Alt drag and copy, see, it looks like there's layers down here, but there truly aren't any layers. These are all on this one single layer. So you have to make a new layer and drag your object up to that layer. See, this one still has all these on there. And you would just have to pick something and then move it up to a new layer and name it correctly. So we have the three circles and the square, and they don't have multiple layers within them. It's like a sub layer. It's weird. Just watch out for that. So I'd call this something like circle 1, circle 2, circle 3. And that's how I'd import that into Illustrator, and it'll have everything on its own layer. If I would have kept them, watch this, they all disappear and go to one layer. So if I were to accidentally group, you're new to Illustrator, it looks like it's layers, but it is not, because they need to be their own out, the layers that are out in this little as the default, not as this little sub grouping. So be careful. Okay, so back into looking at these elements. So there's several groups. And hopefully you have some idea in your mind, like the different layers of stuff. So little particles, the white blings, and then the actual circle badge logo coming in. Now how that comes in is with a technique that we went over towards the beginning, and we'll get into that. But so say look at the particles again. So the way I did this is I made one small group of particles. So I animated one circle, did like up to 5, and then duplicated that to make a whole, like a little group of them. And then for the white part, the white little blingy part, I actually did 3 circles with some fades or some blurs on them. So it's like 1, 2, 3. And then the logo is a little more complex with the track matte to make it become visible. Let's take a look at what we got. I broke out some of these. Gotta let it cache. But this is one of the small groups from that particle. So I animated one of these at a time, and then I used that group and I pre-composed it and then copied it around the circle badge and offset the time a little bit, so it'd be one group, second group, third group. And we can take a look at that. So I scaled them down a little bit, copied a few of them. And I'd like for you guys to, whenever you're watching commercials, and just kind of try to pick apart something that you see a lot. Because that's not too crazy when we get into it. And then the little white circle areas that fade on, those aren't too complex, so I didn't break that out. But I actually broke out how the badge, how the round major logo comes in. So try to look through it again and see how it comes in. It's actually circles. Circles that blend together. They get bigger until it fills in this shape. And the hard part to focus on it is, as it's fading in, I put a blur on this and I made it blurry to not blurry. And I used this. So that logo is all in the middle, and use this kind of thing to bring it in with the Illumamat or an alpha channel. And we're going to make these elements next time, not this time. I want you guys to really study this thing and try to think in ways on how it was done. And then we're going to see how right you are whenever we start to really build it. So that's one thing, is whenever you're looking around on TV or this video clip or the other clip I gave you too, you can notice the big stuff. Like if there's a guy and there was like a video shoot, obviously the dude is not fake, But if there's graphics around them, those are fake. And you can look and see if they could be done in Photoshop, where they're not moving. Or if it's a three-dimensional and changing perspectives, it's probably a 3D program. Just kind of try to break stuff down, like, okay, that's 3D. That could be done in 2D. So if you don't know a 3D program, you can kind of get away with stuff in the 2D world. And just practice on how you could get away with things. And leaning towards that direction in your mind, you'll slowly start to pick up on how things are done, especially when we go through it. But that's pretty much it for this one. It's going to be quick, but if you are really comfortable in Photoshop, really comfortable in Illustrator, you lay everything out in those programs, make sure you're named correctly, and then you can bring it in. And it's already laid out, it's already made. You don't have to come in here and remake it. So that's a really good benefit. And then throughout, I'm going to show you guys how to break it down and start to use it to animate, to bring things visible, make things come in and out, that kind of thing. So practice your Photoshop on your own. Try some files for yourself. Bring them in, see how the naming is. But we're going to work with this file for the next 2 weeks or so. So get ready and think.